Oklahoma Sooners Lacrosse is about to get the 2025 season underway. Let's get to know the guys.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. We're free and available on all podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. We're going to do something a little bit new here on the show. We're going to talk to one of the clubs on campus, and we're bringing in Oklahoma men's lacrosse because, listen, I'm a former lacrosse player, okay? I played at UTA. I know it's not OU, and I'm a little bit sad about that I never got a chance to play for the Sooners, but had my glory days with UTA back in the early 2000s. So this is a first full circle moment for me. Love lacrosse, AKA the fastest game on 2 feet, AKA the creators game. Has huge ties to just the indigenous peoples of North America. So I think it's just relevant for our state. And I'm excited to bring on Colin, Senger, and Kyle Wolchuk to talk lacrosse with us. Colin serves as the club president. Kyle is the vice president. Colin plays long stick midfield. We'll talk a little bit more about what that means. Kyle is the goalie, and as you can imagine, he's probably a little bit crazy. As a former goalie, I can attest. But guys, I'm excited to talk to you and excited for what you guys have coming up in 2025. Let's just get started here. Colin, talk to us a little bit about what Oklahoma Club Lacrosse is.
Yeah, so we are one of the club sports here on campus. We have a team of around 35 guys who have come from all over the country. I'm from Maine, Kyle's from New Jersey. We've got kids from Massachusetts, New York, Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, all over, who all are passionate about lacrosse, and we wanted to continue playing lacrosse at the next level. While going to a big school, which is great, and we enjoy going to big football games, going to a big SEC school while continuing to play lacrosse. So, yeah, we're just a group of guys who all love the sport and want to continue playing.
Well, and what's exciting about this, you talk about being at a big school where you're getting to see the football team play big-time SEC programs. Well, you guys got some SEC programs on your slate for 2025. You'll actually open the season on February 15th down in Southlake, Carroll, against LSU. You'll play Arkansas up in Missouri. I mean, this is a big-time schedule for you guys, and it's going to be exciting, and it's an exciting season. Kyle, what drew you to Oklahoma in particular as a lacrosse school to play for?
So, originally, I was not planning on coming to OU to play lacrosse. That was something that when I finally decided that I was going to come here, that like, all right, like club lacrosse looks pretty cool. Might as well try it out, give it a shot. Really, what drew me to OU first was academics, and I feel like that's one of the big draws of getting to play club lacrosse at one of these bigger schools is you get to go to a pretty, great big SEC sport program to continue playing the sport that, I was born into lacrosse. So since I was 6 months old, I've been around the sport. So it's awesome to get to continue that here.
And coming from the Northeast to the Midwest to play lacrosse, a lot of people are probably still surprised to find out that lacrosse exists. I mean, it's a rapidly growing sport still, and yet I hear people tell me all the time, like, oh, OU has a club team or OU has a team. I'm like, yeah, they do. And actually, they're pretty good at times. So, Kyle, as a goalie, you play up in the Northeast and then come to the Midwest. Like, what has been the difference that you've seen in the game, or has there been much of a difference?
It's a name. And up in the Northeast, lacrosse is life, kind of like how football is in Texas and Oklahoma and these southern states. That's how lacrosse is in the Northeast. And it's cool getting to play it out here where it's not super prominent yet, but it's starting to get there. And that was one of the reasons why I kind of wanted to come out here, is I wanted to help grow the game. I helped out with the Norman Youth Lacrosse program last season. We stay very connected with them. We try to help them out. Last year when we played Texas, we had like a youth day, so they came and played a scrimmage at halftime. So really, what it's about out here is just trying to grow the game, and that's one of the reasons again why I came out here, and it's pretty cool.
Colin, if you had to describe what lacrosse is to somebody who's never really seen it played, how would you describe it?
I would say it's the best combination of football, some hockey, and then I guess you need the endurance of soccer. So it's a combination of all those great sports, but it's all one sport. So it just makes it super special because you get to hit each other. Like in football, you got a stick and there's a ball, and you have the same goal of hockey, but then you got to be in great shape, like a soccer player. So it's really a combination of 3 sports, and I think that it's really a lot of fun for everyone who plays it. And we have some kids who are just picking up a stick, and we have some kids who have played their entire life, like me and Kyle. So it's definitely really cool to both teach kids how to play, and that's something that we are trying to do is develop players as they continue to grow older. But yeah, it's definitely a great sport to play, and I've played it since I was little. So
yeah, I was one of those guys that had never played lacrosse until I got invited to come play for the club team at UTA. And I took to it. It was so much fun to be a part of it. And it's easily my favorite game that I've ever played. I grew up playing baseball. I played some football. I played a little basketball, but lacrosse, man, it just had everything to it. And you talk about the endurance, you talked about the physicality that you might see out on a lacrosse field. What I find fascinating is the tactics remind me a lot of basketball, from both on the offense and the defensive side of the ball. Colin, just describe kind of what you might see if you're a newbie watching lacrosse from a fan perspective. How might an offense look?
Yeah, so I would just say that if you're brand new to the sport, it's definitely probably a little bit foreign because you're not really sure what you're watching. But it's definitely cool to see how multiple offenses work. And we have multiple different offensive sets that we have. And that's definitely something that as a defensive player, it's kind of annoying to know that they could be throwing out multiple different sets. But for a newbie, it's definitely something that probably doesn't make sense right away. And I totally understand that. But once you kind of understand what the lines mean and the objective of obviously you're trying to score the ball into the net. And it's kind of cool how physical you can be because in a sport like basketball, if you whack the other person, there's a foul called. Mm-hmm. And in lacrosse, you can kind of do that and get away with it. And so it's definitely fun to kind of explain to people, I guess. So.
Yeah, and sometimes the best way to start to learn it is actually to see it,
watch it. Yes,
to watch it. I spoke about the offense is in lacrosse, you run a lot of motion offense. You run a lot of pick and roll sets, cuts and feeds, just like you might see on the basketball court. Defensively, it's similar. You're running a lot of man-to-man versus zone, some matchup zone, some box and one style of stuff. And then you have hockey situations where you have man up, man down, or guys that have to go into the penalty area, and you're getting to play with an extra attacker. Kyle, as a goalie, I'm a former goalie. I was a MCLA Division II All-American. That was pretty all right. That was pretty salty. But when you're standing back there between the pipes, talk to people about what it's like, because it is the most difficult goalie position to play in any sport.
Yeah, so it's super dynamic. It's very, very quick. And the biggest thing that we stress at practice is communication, right? Because you might be confused what the offense is doing, but as long as you're communicating and talking it out, there's a good chance that you'll be able to keep up. Obviously, just kind of like basketball, there's man defense, there's zone defense. You can switch in and out of it throughout a play. So, and for someone that is new to lacrosse, kind of like what Colin was saying on the offensive side, the defensive side is definitely confusing to look at. All the different terminology, I'll be screaming, who's hot? Someone on the sideline is going to have no idea what on earth I'm talking about. Yeah. So there's a lot that goes into it. It's really quick. But the biggest thing is to just communicate, and it'll figure itself out.
Yeah. So who's hot? You're not looking for the girl on the sideline. You're not trying to determine which guy on the opposing team is looking the best. No, it's okay. Who's the person that's going to be the help defender, right?
Yes.
If the guy that's one-on-one with the ball carrier gets beat in his one-on-one situation, who's the guy that's going to go help? Who's the help defense? If we're going to use basketball terms,
Exactly.
And that's, you're going to hear the goalie say that a lot. The goalie on defense, he's the quarterback. He's the center on the football field. He's the point guard on defense. He's orchestrating everything and making sure everybody knows what's going on, because a lot of times those defenders, they've got their back turned. Colin, he's what's called a long stick midfielder. So he's primarily focused on playing defense using the long stick. So the defenders and the long stick midfielder, they get that stick that is 6 feet long. Yep. Colin, and they get to put that thing to use and make the magic happen. And so you're talking to a couple of defensive players here that I'm sure take a lot of pride in what they do on the field. Colin, talk to people about what it's like to be a long stick midfielder, because you're primarily responsible for defense, but you've got to be ready to jump in the offensive play, right?
Yeah. It's definitely fun, and I've always played it since high school. I was an attackman in middle school when everyone plays every position. But then when I got to high school, they're like, yeah, you're going to play LSM. They gave me a pole, and I took off from there, and it was the greatest thing that my coach has ever done. So it's definitely a fun position because, like you said, you get to play defense and whack people, but you also get to go down and score, which is a lot of fun. That, like, getting to play both ways and get out in transition and push pace, that's definitely something that I enjoy doing. Even though when they see me wind up, sometimes they tell me coach will call a timeout or whatever, but you never know. I always just say, let the pole shoot, have a pole goal. So it's definitely a lot of fun because it's such a dynamic position. I get to guard midfielders, and then I get to go push transition and pace and go play offense for a little bit. So it's definitely a dynamic position, and I really enjoy playing it.
Yeah, it's one of those positions that you've got to have great endurance for, and you've got to have a really good mind for the game, because you have to have a good feel for the flow of the ball up and down the field. Because if you get caught too far forward and you're allowing a fast break the other direction, you're probably going to get yourself pulled and replaced. But if you're not jumping into the play, you're limiting your offense's potential for a fast break. You're limiting your offense's potential to take advantage of an extra man situation. So it is one of those positions, that long stick midfielder position. We didn't really get into the basics, really. Okay, 10 guys on the field. You have 3 attackers. Those guys are staying forward on the forward half of the field. You have 3 midfielders that play everything. I played a little bit of that too, and I'm so glad I got to stop doing that and get to play goalie. I don't like to run a lot because of that. And then you have 3 defenders and a goalie that stay on the defensive half of the field. And you can only have 6 guys forward and 6 guys plus the goalie back on the defensive side. Otherwise, there's offsides. There's a lot of different penalties that could be called. We're going to get into a little bit more about who Oklahoma Lacrosse is coming into the 2025 season as a team, some of the guys that y'all need to be looking out for when you get out to the field to watch them play this season, and what we're expecting out of this club in 2025. We'll do that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. So, guys, as I was looking at your roster from 2024 to 2025, I mean, you were a really young team last year, and you started the season really well. Like, you won 4 out of your first 5. You picked up some pretty significant wins, on the road, even against, teams like Nebraska. You beat Creighton. You beat Purdue to, first 3 games. You lost to Colorado State, but for people that don't know, Colorado State's a really good team. They've been a really good club team for a lot of years at this level. And then you go and you beat Mizzou, which, hey, that's going to make any Sooner fan happy right now. Go beat Missouri. Please keep doing that. But again, and listen, for the people that don't know, Missouri as a state is a good lacrosse state too, especially out of the St. Louis area. So picking up a win over a team like Creighton, like that is no small potatoes. Picking up a win over Missouri, no small potatoes. And then, things started kind of getting away from you guys, so to speak. You had the Texas loss to Kansas, lost to Ole Miss. So going into this year, you were a very young team last year. You're a lot more experienced as a team this year. How do you get off to a good start and then sustain that success, Colin?
Kyle, do you want to answer? He had this one.
Yeah. All right. Well, so I would say in general this season, we put in a lot more off-season work than we did last year. We had more frequent practices. The overall intensity and effort, I feel like, in practices were better. And again, we have a solid core group that all played together last season. So hopefully when that first whistle blows, we can pick up right where we left off and even at a higher level. I mean, we were one goal away last season from being the number 1 seed in the LSA North division. And I feel like our team, skill-wise, has grown tremendously throughout the year. But it really just starts by doing the little things right on and off the field. Got to stay clean with your passes. Obviously, communication. Offense has to stay locked in, and then off the field stuff. That stuff's pretty self-explanatory for anybody that wants to be a good team. But I would say this season in general, I'm pretty excited. I would say this is probably the most excited I've ever been for a lacrosse season in my life. And we're all ready to hit the field, and we're excited to show everybody what we've been working on the past couple months.
Yeah, as a young team, it's not uncommon to have some 1-goal losses. You had a couple, back-to-back situations against Ole Miss and against Kansas. But like you mentioned, all the offseason work you guys put in, maybe you get those wins coming up this year, or the margin of victory isn't as small, or you're able to kind of flip the script on some of that. You got a new head coach, though. So talk to us a little bit about Corban Barnett.
Yeah, Corban has been a great addition to our program. He's been a lifelong Sooner fan, and has been exactly what we needed. He played Division II and Division III lacrosse at St. Anselm and Hope College. He's a Norman local guy, and he's really brought great energy, commitment, and has the mindset of success that we're really looking for us. And he pushes all the players, and he really does want the program to succeed and do well. Each day he's bringing great intensity, which is super critical for building the winning culture that we're really trying to build. And it's already been installed since we've added him. He's just been a great addition so far. So
having a guy that is from the area, that is a Normanite, so to speak, I mean, that matters. It's hard to keep good coaches in the club lacrosse arena, because I mean, it's a lot of times it's a lot of volunteer work. It's a lot of time away from their full-time job or away from their families. And so, Corban Barnett being willing to give that time and that experience to the team is going to be beneficial for the club as they continue to move forward. I want to ask this. I mean, we talked about being a young team last year. The benefit of that is you get a lot of experience, maybe go through some growing pains, but you bring back a lot, especially, 3 of your top 4-5 scorers from this year or from last year, especially, Zeke Mullendore and Josh, I'm going to mispronounce it again. Huvde? Huvde. Oh man, I was just overthinking it. My bad, Josh. My bad. Josh Huvde. I'm going to get that right. But that's, Zeke had 34 points, 29 goals. Josh, he had 36 points, 13 goals, and 23 assists. He had an honorable mention award from the Lone Star Alliance last year. So what does it mean for the team to be able to bring back 2 of those high-powered scorers?
Yeah, it's definitely great. We're returning a lot of talent from last year, especially most of them being like freshmen and sophomores or young kids, which gives us hope, and like there's good things coming for this year, but also for the future that we can grow on, because they still got 2 or 3 years left. Additionally, we brought in 2 Division I transfers to provide some more depth. We have Jackson Ferris, who's a junior, who's coming from Queens in North Carolina. And we also have Connor Stevens, who's a freshman coming from Detroit Mercy. And so they've been able to give us another boost on offense. I'd say our youth is another thing that makes us optimistic, because we've got a big freshman class right now, and we've got a big freshman class coming in next year. So just adding to Zeke and Josh and all our returners from last year is something that we're trying to build off of and get this thing rolling.
Well, and what I thought was really cool is, I mean, you talk about all these guys that come from all over the place, Garden City, New York, Colorado, Texas, another Colorado kid, you're from Maine, New Jersey, Georgia, Fort Collins, Colorado. I mean, these hotbeds for lacrosse, but your leading scorer was from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
That's pretty dope. Like Zeke is a Tulsa kid. So that's pretty cool that we're seeing the growth of lacrosse here in this state. And it's exciting to see. And it's exciting to see these Oklahoma kids staying local too, because I'm sure that they're getting opportunities to go play in other places as well. But it's just going to continue to build the program as you recruit from across the country, but also as you guys are doing there in Norman, building up the local talent as well. It's only going to continue to further serve Oklahoma lacrosse and just the sport of lacrosse in the state. The other thing I want to ask you guys about, okay, defensively, you had some really good games last year. You had some games that, okay, you probably would like to have performed a little bit better, that Texas game in particular. How do you evolve as a defense to take that next step?
So, I would say this year is a little bit different defensively because we're going to most likely be starting 2 freshmen and a sophomore, and then I'm a sophomore. I'll be back there. So we're a very, very young defense. But a lot of the guys that we have, Mason Sincata, he's a sophomore who's going to be starting down low. Him and I, we played almost every minute of every game last year. So it's our job to help out these new guys, these freshmen, and kind of lead the way. And another problem that we had last year was we battled a bunch of injuries. Like in that Texas game, we had our second string goalie playing close defense for a shift. Like we were pretty hurt. So that explains some of it. I'd say overall last season, obviously it's not always perfect, but I would say that our defense was probably the stronger side of the ball, and I think most of the team would agree. And we're hoping to bring a lot of that momentum into this season. And it starts with me, starts with Mason, starts with Colin at LSM. We just really need to rally the troops together and make sure everyone's on the same page and feeling good to go.
So a lot like the Oklahoma football team, you guys got riddled with injuries too. So we're just like wiping the slate clean completely from 2024. It's like it's past us. It's in the rear view. It's a fresh start in 2025. So, it's a new season. I know expectations are high. Where do you guys feel like you could see yourself coming to the end of the season?
I would say, our first goal obviously is win the North. That consists of us, Baylor, Missouri, Kansas, and Ole Miss. So winning that would put us against like the 4 seed coming out of the South, which is a huge advantage. Our conference games, they always are competitive because there is something at stake of making it to postseason. And that just feeds our team. We've got a young team, but we're definitely getting ready to go out there and just play someone. We want to make a statement this year, and winning the North is the first goal for that. So we've got a good out of conference schedule too. We've got a big Purdue trip. We're playing Purdue, Indiana, Illinois. So that's a big road test for us to kind of start our season. Obviously we play LSU as the first game, who's a team down in the South. So they're a conference game. So we'll be coming out firing for that one. And then I guess our biggest thing that I guess we can ask of the public is to show up for March 7th at 7:00 when we've got our first home game. We've got Kansas coming to town. It's a big conference game for us. They were the number 1 seed last year in the North, and we were the 2. So that's just the biggest thing. That's a huge game for us. We're trying to get everyone out, spread the word. So, yeah.
Where do you guys play at on campus?
We're at the IM Fields right off Stinson Street, and then our night games are like right across where the new lights are for intramurals.
What's the game you're most excited for this year, Kyle?
I would say there's 2. I'm really excited for the LSU game. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's season opener. They're a very, very good team. So that'll be a big test. That'll really tell us how much we've grown. And no matter what happens in that game, we still know that it's a long season. There's so much more after it. And then I would say that Kansas game, because last year we were in Lawrence. They had a student section. They were in my ear the entire time. So I'd love to get back and just roll them at home. That's the goal this year.
Yeah. What about you, Colin? What game are you most looking forward to this year?
I would also agree with the Kansas game, and I would also say Ole Miss, because those are two teams that they've had all 4 years. They've beat us every single time. So those are the big ones, especially last year when we played Kansas back-to-back with Ole Miss. We went to double overtime and then quadruple overtime in back-to-back days. So those were kind of games that stung last year, and I think that a lot of the guys on the team agreed that those ones kind of hurt, and we definitely want to come back and punch them in the mouth. So those are my two ones that I have circled.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than an overtime loss in lacrosse. Like I suffered one at the end of our 2004 season, the year that we actually won the championship. We lost to Southwestern 11-10 in overtime. I was the goalie. The dude had a diving wraparound. He was in the crease. 21 years later, he was in the crease.
I bet he was.
I'll never give it up.
Nope.
I'll never get it. The dude was really good. Like, he was fantastic attackman, but he was in the crease. So yeah, those 1-goal losses, man, they haunt you. They stay with you. And we didn't get a chance to play them in the playoffs. They got beat by Nichols in the playoffs, so we didn't get a chance to redeem ourselves. Which, I mean, we did, because we beat Nichols 22-12, I think it was.
Yeah.
So good redemption. Just a little.
Yeah.
Shameless plug of my lacrosse career. But no, dude, it's going to be an exciting season for you guys. And I really hope everybody goes out and gives lacrosse a chance. Spread the word. It's going to be some beautiful weather out there this spring, a great opportunity to get outside and go check out some lacrosse action. Again, the fastest game on 2 feet. It's up and down action. It's back and forth. You're going to see some big hits. You're going to see some physicality. You're not maybe going to understand everything that's happening out there, but that's okay. You'll pick it up as you go. And there's a lot of YouTube tutorials that you can watch out there as well about lacrosse. I'm sure there's a billion things out there that people can find to explain what the game of lacrosse is about. But here's a little brief history primer. It dates back about as long as you can imagine on this continent. It's the oldest North American sport. Westerners discovered it saw it is maybe the better way to put it, around 1600. And then kind of helped make it a little bit more safer so that we could play it and modernize it. But it's one of the best games that you'll ever watch and ever be a part of. So get your kids, get the family out there, go support OU men's lacrosse this spring. Again, Colin Senger, the club president and long stick middie, Kyle Wolchuk, goalie and vice president. Make sure you go follow OU men's lacrosse on Twitter, wherever they are. Are you guys on Instagram too? Yes. I imagine you are.
Yes. Yeah. OU_lacrosse on Instagram.
There you go. Go follow them. Go check them out at the intramural fields. Again, March 7th, primetime game. Hey, the Big 12 wouldn't give you primetime games, but the Lone Star Alliance will give you some primetime games. So
exactly.
There you go. It's just good. It's a fantastic sport. I can't speak enough about it. I hope you guys get a lot of fan support out there. And again, go check them out. It's going to be a lot of fun. For Kyle, for Colin, I'm John Williams. Make sure you follow the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. But until next time, we'll catch up with these guys a little bit later down the road, see how their season's going along. Colin, Kyle, thanks so much for being on the show. One last thing. Boomer!
Sooner!